Mrs. Kolm, thank you for talking to Tabula. Today is Hayek's birthday. What is the legacy that he has left us with?
Hayek's legacy is that we must not give in, that we have to fight for individual freedom, because this is something that emerges automatically, spontaneously, and we really need to fight for it. We must not give up.
What are his main ideas, in your opinion, that are especially relevant to today's world?
Well, we face an international sovereign debt crisis. It started out with the financial crisis in the United States, and now we face the European sovereign debt crisis, and therefore his business cycle theory is probably one of the most important theories and legacies that he gave us. When Hayek talked about the booms and busts and the business cycles, he exactly pointed out what will happen if too much money is injected in a system. And this is what we face now, and if wrong policies that are not market-based policies are carried out.
So you kind of agree with the opinion that the Austrian school was the one that not only explained the crisis but also kind of predicted it. Is that right? Exactly.
The Austrian school predicted actually all of the major crises that we faced, whether it was the oil crisis in the 70s or whether it was the IT bubble that we faced in the change of the millennium. Those crises have always been predicted by the Austrians.
Could you please briefly elaborate on the explanation of current crisis and how it differs from other schools of economics?
The central banks kept printing money, especially in the United States. The real value of money was undermined. The interest rates went down. Interest is nothing else but the price for money, and if you put too much money into the system, then things like that emerge. The second reason is that regulation did not work. The financial markets in the United States or all over the world actually are those markets that are actually heavily regulated. But it was, of course, wrong regulation on the one hand, and on the other hand, the regulation, if you look at Madoff, for example, it did not work out. People had an opportunity to come by this regulations, and now the answer is we need more regulation and we need more government. Government has never solved the crisis, nowhere in the world. It's the markets that get us out of the crisis again. But we have to accept that there are booms and busts and there is a business cycle. It cannot always be economic growth. It's different growth. It's different creation of values. We all emerge, and what was true 10 years ago must not be true now. So we have to learn, and this is also another legacy of Hayek, the creation of knowledge in society, how this is being done also spontaneously and created spontaneously.
In one of his essays he talks especially about this, the knowledge problem of the society and how it uses it. How do you think, why does this inertia still persist?
Because people think that they have full information. There is no such thing as full information. This does not exist even in our IT age. We have to forget that. We don't have full information, and as long as we don't accept that, we will make mistakes.
Hayek's solution to any crisis was a limited government that allows a free market to flourish. Do you think this approach is getting more popular now?
Well, it's at least more relevant now than ever today. If we look at what happened with the elections all over Europe, unfortunately I fear that we will have a development where we get more government, stronger states than we have it now. But in the end, you know, this will bring us even into a bigger crisis, because the welfare state that we know that we have faced in Europe created those big debt problems. and now we cannot finance this anymore. So we have to put the reset button, and the reset button can only be, or the solution is actually only less government. So the most important question that we need to ask ourselves now is, what is the task? What is the role of the state? What does it really have to perform? And unless we do not answer this question satisfyingly also for the next generation, we will not get out of this crisis.
Well, maybe we could say that Hayek's approach was that the state should not decide what is the just distribution of wealth, and that market should do it. But still, we see that most governments cannot resist playing this game. What is the reason behind that?
Well, the reason obviously is behind that politicians want to be re-elected, and they do not think of the consequences of their actions. So, and it's of course easier to redistribute than to earn, and this is what we face all the time. It's easier to take other people's money, namely the taxpayers' money, and redistribute it unwisely and inefficiently. I've never seen a government in the world that acts as efficient as a market or as an enterprise.
And what was the reason, in your opinion, that 5 or 10 years ago Hayek wasn't, like, ideas of Hayek weren't so popular?
Well, we had huge, tremendous economic growth, and we were able to redistribute, which is again, taking taxpayers' money and using it for inefficient causes. But it didn't matter because we had growth and we were wealthy, so we didn't have a look at that. But now that we have less wealth, or that our wealth is at risk, we have to look carefully where we spend the money on and what we do with the money, where we invest it. And now people have to start thinking. And again, 10 years ago it was easier. Now the growth rates slowed down, or actually we are in recession in many countries, and we have this tremendous crisis in Europe, and it will not be solved by Keynesian politics.
Do you think this current crisis will affect reputation of some schools of economic thought, and if so, which one in particular?
Well, of course, we all know that the Keynesian solution, as we have seen it and played in Europe, does not work. However, we have to give Keynes credit that Keynes said, if you inject money into the system as government, as state, then you also have to withdraw it once the crisis is solved. But as we have seen from Europe, there hasn't been any government in Europe that took steps back and that withdraw. Once government is in somewhere, it never leaves. So we have seen that in Europe. So in some places, maybe in the United States, it's different, but in Europe, it's definitely the big problem.
This pre-market roadshow is titled "The Turning Point for Georgia." What do you think is meant by this phrase, and what is the main choice that Georgia faces today?
Well, as many other European countries, Georgia is on crossroads, and talking of Europeans, we are definitely on the road to serfdom if we do not reduce our government, if we do not ask the question that I pointed out, what is the role of government, like putting the rule of law as the most important thing into the center of all the performances of government. And I think this is true for Georgia too. The rule of law is a very important thing. And then of course market-based reforms, cut spending, a low tax rate, free economic zones and areas where you allow competition, where a country like Georgia can play internationally a very important role.
Do you think there are some steps taken in that direction in Georgia?
At least they were taken, and I hope they will continue. However, you never know what happens after elections. Many politicians just take steps back and reduce reforms. And what we see, if free market reforms are being taken back, then the country is going into decline.
Lastly, is the world taking Hayek seriously today?
Well, Hayek is being taken more seriously than he was 5 to 10 years ago. However, the good old times when Lady Thatcher and Ronald Reagan were promoting free markets and Hayek's reform is a long time ago, but those two politicians pulled their country out of crisis by those reforms, and we have seen many other countries using those reforms and performing much better than without these types of policies. So to keep it short, yes, the age of Hayek is returning.
Thank you so much.